The encounter with death is a perennial human experience. Ancient accounts of the human corpse, memoirs of grief, fond recollections of the departed, all still ring true to modern, mortal ears facing death themselves or confronting the death of a beloved. This is because, in the deepest respects, the core realities of death persist unaltered through time. The finality of the lifeless body, the responsibility of relinquishing the deceased person's mortal remains, the burden of mourning the departed and accepting life without them. To be human means that death is inevitable. To care for our fellow humans means that caring for the dead is inescapable. Technological and social progress do not change these human realities. Yet, in crucial ways, if not the most fundamental ways, how we die in the modern age would be unrecognizable to our forebears. Typically, death arrives on the doctor's watch and only after an explicit decision by the dying person's surrogate to forego additional life-sustaining treatments. In many cases, knowing when or whether death has actually arrived is puzzling. The brain-dead body hooked up to a ventilator is not lifeless. The heart still beats, the chest still moves, the organs still work, if not necessarily as parts of a living whole. But whether the ventilated, brain-dead body still functions as a living person or a whole, integrated organism is a matter of ongoing mystery and debate. Moreover, once death has occurred, relinquishing the body and mourning the person are no longer the only concerns. The irreversibly dead body now has a novel potential to be used for medical education or scientific research, or as a supply of much-needed tissues and organs for patients whose tissues and organs are failing. The perennial problems of death thus come with many novel quandaries. For the most practical reasons, such as knowing when a person is dead or dead enough, so that organs can be removed, we need to address the most philosophical kinds of questions. What is death, and what do we owe those who are irretrievably dying or newly dead? As we explore these issues, it is important to keep the ontological and psychological question of defining death as separate as possible from the question of and desire for organ procurement. It is true that much of the urgency in the 1950s and 1960s for revisiting the question of when death occurs came from the desire to procure transplantable organs while they were still useful, that is, before the decay of the body. And because organ transplantation serves an obvious moral good, there are compelling reasons to be as precise as possible in defining when the line from living person to dead body has been crossed, so that possibility of taking organs is not unduly restricted by waiting too long to declare a patient dead. Erring too much on the side of caution now has a high cost in organs lost. Nevertheless, it would be misguided to see the death question entirely in light of the transplantation question, or to adopt a definition of death that is most conducive to organ procurement, but not necessarily the most ontologically, physiologically, and morally compelling. And this is my experience about death and what I witnessed. When I was a kid, I witnessed the death of our neighbor, who is a grandfather to me. Seeing a person who's struggling to breathe is one of the worst scenarios in my life. I was grade 2 back then, and I can still remember what happened that time. Seeing the family of the struggling person crying is painful. You can explain what you're feeling and what you can do to help because you're still young to think what to do. And it is not just the time I saw a dead person. Actually, I saw many times. And I know that feeling having that one member of your family died. It is very heartbreaking, and I realize that we must cherish every moment of our life. Spend time to your loved ones is one of the satisfaction of living. Be grateful on what you have, not on what you don't have, because I believe God let you have the things you need, not just on what you want. And this is all about my report. For listening, and I hope you can learn something from it.